Today we will be doing is reacting to stories. We're going to go into two different stories, starting off with this one right here. Let's get started.
Hey, I'm Simon, and like many others, I played video games since I was a little kid.
Okay.
Only for me, it turned into an addiction that was making my life harder. Before I turned 15, I was playing video games a lot, but not so much to ruin my grades or affect other aspects of life. Then, my friends introduced me to one competitive online game. I'm not going to call it by name, but most of you will probably guess which one I'm talking about. We were playing together, talking through microphones, and it was a lot of fun, while working together as a team. Soon, my friends moved to other games, but I stuck with it. It wasn't just fun for me. It also was interesting to develop my skills in it. Honestly, I dreamed of turning into a professional gamer one day, and all my free time went to this. Basically, it felt like I was doing something useful. Before, games were just about having fun, the same as like watching a movie or reading a book, you know? But now, it felt like it was a lifestyle. I spent all of my free time playing it, usually until morning. Of course, in school I was sleepy and exhausted, and even if I wasn't, I was thinking about the game all day, watching videos about it.
Okay, guys. So, if you guys play video games, don't comment down below in the description. If you do play video games and what kind you do. And follow me on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. Okay,
News and exploring new strategies for it. And then, as soon as I would come home, I would start playing it again. Usually, I would think that I would play a bit and then do my homework and chores. But then, it was 1 more hour, and 2, 3, 5,
and then it's morning again.
At this point, my grades seriously went down. And needless to say, my friends long have forgotten about me. Because I was obsessed with this one game. But I didn't mind. Because I was getting better at the game. And other stuff didn't matter. But it got worse. I started putting money into the game. I saved on lunch money and overall allowance my parents gave me and paid for stuff in the game. And they were purely cosmetic. They didn't even give me any advantage. My parents didn't notice at first because they worked a lot and didn't have time for it. This also allowed me to even miss school in order to play sometimes. So all of it continued for at least half a year. I managed to study as much as it was needed, not to fail completely. I was very nervous, angry, and rude during this time. I was arguing with other players in the game and insulted them. Funny thing is that I've seen players like that since the first day of playing the game, but I always laughed at them, thinking I would never come to the dark side like them. The same was happening in real life. Whole day at school, I was craving to go back to play the game, and got annoyed when someone tried to talk to me about their stupid, as it seemed to me back then, problems. When my grades became so bad I was failing, my parents finally caught on with what was happening and took my computer away from me. I was so mad. I tried to explain to them that it's worth it and you can make millions as a professional player, but they didn't listen. So I did the only reasonable thing I could in this situation. Started playing a cheap mobile knockoff of this game, but soon they took my phone away from me as well. I was even madder than previous time and refused to listen to them. But with time, I started to realize what kind of situation I was in. Before my addiction started, I was a good student. Not great, but good. Now, I was failing at almost every subject. Yeah, even gym class. Teachers explained to me and my parents that I either have to go to summer school or stay for a second year to even have a chance to pass my exams later. Realization of my screw-up was devastating for me. I felt like I had literally destroyed my chances for a good future, or going to college, because of my stupid and unrealistic dream of becoming a professional gamer. Because, in reality, only one person out of several thousands has a chance of becoming a pro. I watched multiple videos and read articles from older guys who had the same problem, and their lives were miserable. I decided to devote my entire summer to studying, and although it was sad and hard for me, I barely managed to recover for the next year. My parents were very understanding and got me my computer and phone back as soon as they saw that I was working hard on correcting my mistakes. So now I'm kind of okay. It's still hard to study and prepare for exams, but at least I stopped ruining my chances while I still could. I don't think that video games are bad, and I hope I will be able to get back to playing them when my situation is better. Not like last year, but like before, when I had played games for just a few hours every other day. Until then, I have to keep away from them. Please share this video so other people with the same problem would see it and change before it's too late. And
Okay
if you
guys,
already
please
have
do
the same
that.
problem, share it in the comments.
Thanks, bye. Peace out, guys. So we will be watching another one. If you guys want to.
Hi, my name's Michael Jordan. No, not that Michael Jordan, of course. Michael's my first name, Jordan's my middle name. And yes, I was named after the greatest basketball player of all time. This was an idea my dad had since he was like 18, which was years before he even got married, and even longer before he knew he'd have a son. My dad has always been a huge sports fan. He'd never really played any sports. I mean, as a kid he had a basketball hoop in the front yard, but it didn't really go further than that, even during high school or at college level. But as he grew up, he became a huge fan. And it's not just about the NBA. Sure, basketball's his favorite sport, but he's also into hockey, tennis, baseball, football, soccer, and I'm not even sure I managed to remember all of them. Some kind of game is on literally every single minute when my dad's home. I mean, he's got a job and stuff. In fact, he works as an art teacher, and he's a really good painter. This makes his love for sports a paradox for most people who get to know him. He's never really lived in any major sports cities, so the teams he follows are all over the country. He's been a Chicago Bulls fan since he grew up seeing Michael Jordan play. As for hockey, he loves the LA Kings. That's the stuff I remember for sure, and I'm kind of confused about the rest. My dad had always hoped his first child would be a boy, and it wasn't just about the name. You see, after college, my dad had to move to another town, so he left all his friends behind, and they'd been the only people he could discuss the Bulls games with, and stuff like that. Yes, of course, there are plenty of sports fans online, but you can't watch a game with people you meet on the internet. So anyway, my dad found himself in a situation where literally no one around him shared his interests, and that was tough for him. I mean, even people who were kind of interested in basketball, hockey, or football could only really make small talk. But my dad needed more. These were people who'd watched the Super Bowl, or knew which team LeBron was playing for. But my dad needed a real soulmate. Then, he met my mum. He turned out to be his soulmate in everything but sports. They got married, and when my dad found out he was having a son, he already had a plan, and he was determined to stick to it. As I was growing up, I was exposed to sports as much as possible. I even had a Bulls onesie and a Wayne Gretzky poster on my wall since I was a couple of months old. Dad travels to see big games live several times a year, and when I turned 3, he started to take me with him. I mean, he would have done it earlier if it wasn't for my mum. She was okay with sports when they met, but over the years she's gotten so tired of them. Now every time my dad puts on a game, she leaves the room and puts on music. And that's kind of sad, because they end up spending less time together. So, awkward moments started to occur when I became old enough to understand what was going on around me. And it didn't take long for me to realize that I was completely uninterested in any of the sports he was obsessed with. I mean, it was always fun playing them, but I just didn't get what was so exciting about being a fan. But my dad never gave up. It had been years and years, and he still kept trying. Sometimes he'd change the tactics and ease up on the pressure, hoping I'd just spontaneously want to watch a game with him. But that never happened. I liked spending time with him, but why did everything have to be about sports? For example, I've been playing drums for 5 years already, and every time there's a concert I'd like to go to that's not too far from us, I'd love to go with my dad, but half the time, there's some really important game that he can't miss the same night. And if we go, well, once we went to a concert of a really good jazz drummer. The show was awesome, but my dad was so bored and was constantly checking scores online. That was heartbreaking. It got really bad once when I was playing at a school concert myself. And yeah, this was the same night as the Kings game, and they were in the playoffs. There was an early game, and Dad had it all figured. He was planning to watch the game, then drive really fast to my school and arrive right on time, just before I got on stage. But hockey games always last longer, because of overtime. And if the score is tied, the overtime can basically last until one of the teams scores. And yes, that particular game took longer than expected. Dad stayed home watching as long as he could, hoping the match would finish. Long story short, he arrived late once I was already off stage. I guess that was the moment when he figured out that something had to change. He realized that this was becoming a problem. Of course, being a sports fan is a lot of fun, but nothing's good when it goes too far. For my dad, it was already something like an addiction. And you know, I think he's changing. He started to spend more time with me and Mum, and he's even missed some really important games, which was quite a sacrifice for him, and I really appreciate that. So a couple times a month when I see him watching a game on TV, I sit down with him to give him company. I've almost learned all of the teams. Is there anything your parents love that you don't understand?
Okay guys, so that's it for today's video. So yeah, let's go and stop that here. So yeah, peace out.